So let's talk about how potentially AMC stock could reach thousands of dollars per share during this next rally of, call it the MOAS, call it the end game, call it whatever you want, if it does happen around this executive order, the couple of weeks after. Bear with me here. This is not clickbait. This is obviously no guarantee, should not be construed as financial advice. It should not be construed as a sellout price. None of that. But I think when you connect the dots here, it is very possible. And I think you guys should be made well aware of what I am personally looking at here. So we're going to get into it. Feel free to let me know your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. I know people are going to say, hey, we're at $15 per share. Why are you talking about thousands of dollars per share? It's the possibility of it. It's not to give you guys hopium. Don't smoke the hopium. You're good here. We're good. We're going to make money either way. But this is what I could see playing out. And I think if you watch this video, it might make a little bit of sense to you. So let's get into it, guys. If you guys want access to my trades, link down below in the pinned comment. Obviously, that is non-financial advice as well. Get yourself free stock, Webull, Moomoo, and Public. If you sign up right now, you might have time to sell your stock, make a trade on AMC. If you guys want to, also, not financial advice. Nothing on this channel is. So, getting into this video. AMC stock is up about 18%. I made a video yesterday. AMC stock is about to go crazy. A lot of people obviously did not like that, so I expect a lot of people are not going to like this video as well. I get it. It's been a long time. We've been in this trade. We know the manipulation. We know what has been happening that has not actually happened. Nothing that should have happened actually came to fruition over the last year. And just to boil that down, why that hasn't happened is because capital was so cheap, it was so inexpensive to remain in a short position. That's it. That's the bottom line to it. It didn't matter what AMC said. AMC could have said, you know, they just found $1 billion worth of gold under an AMC theater and it would have done nothing for the stock, right? In terms of shorts covering, right? So that's pretty well established. I hope everyone knows that by now, right? But where we're currently sitting, everything is expensive. I mean, margin rates have went up, credit, variable lines of credit, don't even talk about those. Those have went insane, just stupid high, right? So you can imagine that's why the cost of borrow is going up. You can imagine that's why hedge funds are taking massive losses, right? Their portfolio values have went down dramatically in values. The bond market, S&P, Dow, NASDAQ, real estate, everything's starting to go down. So when a hedge fund gets margin called, they could look at their portfolio and say, hey, we got some Apple, we got some Microsoft, we got some Amazon. But if Amazon's down 40% in 5 months, or Apple's down 25%, or Tesla's down 45% in 5 months, it becomes a lot harder to meet that, say, $1 billion margin call, right? So that's kind of the backstory behind it. But what I have really been alluding to is the executive order. That's what caused the January rally and the June rally. But I really want to focus on the June rally real quick. And this is kind of ties into how potentially AMC stock could go to thousands of dollars per share. Because we know during the January and June rally, some shorts covered, but a vast majority of shorts were not forced to cover. And we know when a short squeeze starts, the guys that have to cover, say when the stock is $20 per share, they got margin call quick. That doesn't necessarily do that much for the stock. Yes, it helps drive it up, but it doesn't move the stock up like $5 a candle, right? What moves the stock up a lot is, call it the second half of shorts that have to cover. Not the first half, but the second half. Because at that point, you have a gamma squeeze that is ripping the stock up. Hedge funds are just massively getting blown up at that point. And you also, in the case of AMC, are going to have a lot of manipulation that comes back to bite the market makers and the hedge funds in the ass. But let's talk about the executive order real quick. So last time around, it went into effect May 27th. You had seen a 35.5% positive day. The next day, you dropped about 1.5%. The next day, you rallied about 22.66%. And then the last day of the squeeze was June 2nd. We rallied about 95.22%, going from about $35.59 for the low, closed at the high at $72.62 per share. Obviously, the rest is history on that. The next day, you fell. And why did we fall the next day? Why did we fall 18%? Well, it was because the executive order went into effect. And hedge funds could use Chinese securities as collateral. And the markets were in a much different place then. So Chinese securities were worth more. Stocks were worth more. The stock market was hitting an all-time high. Interest rates were ultra ultra low. Why would you cover on a short position when you could go get a loan at a bank for 1.5–2% if you're a hedge fund, right? You wouldn't cover. You wouldn't take that massive loss. You would wait for the stock to come back down. But what if the executive order was not retracted on the 3rd? Now, I want you guys to think about the overall macro conditions, about what has changed since June of 2021. Well, obviously, we just said stocks, portfolio values have went down quite dramatically. So that has obviously changed. That's obviously in a much different place than it was a year ago. I hope we have at least established that in the community by now. It's harder to service a margin call. It's going to be a lot quicker to see these essentially margin calls turn into 4-share liquidations and shorts actually covering this time around. That's important to know. If you don't understand that, then a lot of this is not going to make sense. But when you start to see 100% days in AMC stock, most people were actually buying in on this 95% day. Most people, when they see a 20–30% day, they think it's cool and all. People that are in the trade are happy. But when you see 100% day, or a 95% day to be more specific, June 2nd, that's when you've seen the largest inflows of bullish activity for AMC stock as far as buying shares, people buying shares, hedge funds buying shares, as well as option activity. So if we look at the macro conditions now, the geopolitical tensions now, I think it's pretty clear across the board with Republicans, Democrats, governments, people. Not a lot of people want to own Chinese securities. There's not a big appetite for Chinese securities. And especially what has happened since June of 2021, it looks like, in my personal opinion, the executive order might not be retracted as fast. And that's where you could start to see maybe a 100% rally, and then a 500% rally, maybe a 200% rally, right? And once you're sitting at $70, or call it $100, and you see a 500% rally, boom, you're at $400 or $500. You're pretty close to $1,000, right? And that is very possible, especially when hedge funds are getting blown up. And that, I think, is the real key here. It's the FOMO kicking in after you see a massive day. It's the executive order not being retracted. Now, obviously, that's the thing. I don't know if it will be, but it's interesting to imagine if the executive order does not get retracted, what could happen for the stock? Because we know shorts didn't cover in June. By and large, only like 6% of the short interest was actually covered. So that back half is going to do a lot of damage. It's going to push the stock up in a very dramatic way. And you're just going to see full-on bankruptcies across a lot of the smaller hedge funds. The big guys, they might not get, they might not go bankrupt because of this, but there will be some hedge funds that go down because of this. But also at the same time, we're going to get into the Ortex data in just a second, because the short interest is at the highest level we've seen since June, even higher than June now. But I want to talk about a full option chain gamma squeeze. Now, usually a gamma squeeze works usually with like 1 or 2 expirations. Say if we're seeing a gamma squeeze for the day, which it looks like we are a little bit. You've seen about 15,000, almost 16,000 contracts at the $13 strike go into the money today. About 1,100 or 11,200 at the $13.50. About 10,000 at the $14 strike. This is causing some buying activity. No doubt about that. Shorts are not covering today. This is not a short covering kind of rally. Maybe it's affecting the June 3rds as well. You've seen a couple thousand contracts run into the money right there. But what I really want to focus in on is June 17th as well as July 15th. And I want to focus on the premiums, because the premiums are very cheap right now, considering the price of AMC stock is relatively low, right? Look at this. A $20 strike for July 15th right now is trading at $1.85, $185. So your break even is only $21.85 per share. So even on these further out expirations, if AMC stock, say, goes above this green break even at the $20 strike, the market makers will have to go out and hedge out even these options. So you're not only looking at just one big expiration, you're actually looking at 2. And the July 15th expiration is actually much bigger. quite sizably bigger. You're looking at about 300,000 calls that are out of the money for July 15th. About 7,100 calls that are in the money. For June 17th, about 222,000 calls that are out of the money, 5,300 calls that are currently in the money. And on the put side as well, it's massive. For June 17th, about 109,000 puts that are in the money. For July 15th, about 48,000 puts that are in the money. That also does contribute to a gamma squeeze because when puts run into the money, market makers have to short stock on the open market, and that obviously pushes the price of the stock down. When those puts were in the money, now run out of the money, that means the market makers can go out and buy those shorts back and to de-hedge and to essentially stay that delta neutral, which in theory they want to. So I don't just think you're looking at just a single expiration gamma squeeze. I think you could be looking at a full-on whole option chain gamma squeeze, especially if the executive order does not get essentially kick the can down the road. And if you guys don't know what the executive order is by now, it's essentially saying that firms cannot use Chinese securities as collateral. And given the market conditions and what has changed over the past year, I think it makes more sense than not to keep this ban in effect. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm seeing things too narrowly here. But I think it makes a little bit of sense. And I think if we would have never seen the executive order actually get retracted in June, the stock would have went much higher, right? Much higher. You would have continued to see that gamma squeeze. There was certainly a lot of activity, and it could have went even higher. That's just a thought that I have, though. Now let's take a look at the option activity, because we can see the short interest of free float sitting at about 23.25%, which is very, very high. Current shares that are sold short of 119.85 million. Cost to borrow max at about 15%. Cost to borrow average at about 13%. Why do you think these are going up? Well, it's becoming more expensive to borrow and short AMC stock because people are implying a move higher, and that's why the cost to borrow rates in GameStop, as well as Redbox, as well as AMC, all these other stocks as well, have been going up. And you can see borrowed shares for the day of about 7.1 million, return shares of about 359.66 thousand. So you're definitely not seeing shorts covering today. You're actually seeing the free float out on loan going up quite dramatically, now at 33.68%. So there's a lot of fuel on the fire here as well, that potentially these shares being returned could be very bullish for the stock, or there's a lot of potential dry powder to short the stock. And if we look at the option activity, lots of call options actually coming through for June 17th. Look at these $21 calls coming through for about $100,000. Lots of call activity overall. You guys could see a bunch of call activity. Some of the put activity I think is really to hedge out and to use the puts as insurance for potentially a large position if we do get some kind of bad news over the weekend. But overall, looks very bullish to me. The fact that the short interest is now at these levels as well adds a little bit of credibility to potentially, how AMC could reach these incredible levels. And I think it all comes down to the simple fact of, does the executive order get extended? Does it stay? Or does it get retracted? If it does not get retracted, then I think it's going to be very hard to stop this rally when shorts start to be liquidated. So that's my thoughts. I don't know how high it'll go. That's how potentially AMC stock could hit thousands of dollars per share, maybe in the next couple of weeks, maybe in the next couple of months. I don't want to throw out specific dates there because I'm not a fortune teller and I don't know exactly, but that is how theoretically it could happen. So if you guys found value out of this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, source comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Most importantly, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this. Get yourself those free stocks down below in the description. If you guys want to come trade with me live in real time, never a financial recommendation, never advice, none of that. It's simply to source ideas and to kind of, talk about what could be a good trade, right? To source information. So that is that. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekends. Markets are closed on Monday, so take that extra day to relax, kick back with family, and get ready, baby. Executive order does go into effect next week on June 3rd. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one.